So, we are here to do an important conversation discussing National Distance Learning Week and all things digital and online learning. I have a very special guest inside of our digital recording studio here at Howard University, which we call the Mecca. And before I get started, let me tell you who I am. For those who don't know, I am Dr. Morris Thomas, and I serve as the Assistant Provost for Digital and Online Learning here at Howard University. And I also serve as the Director of our Center for Excellence in Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. I'm also faculty in both the School of Business and the School of Education. And so I'm super excited to have with us today here in our studio, here in the Office of Digital and Online Learning, Professor Olive Vassell. She is at one of our sister HBCUs, Historically Black Universities, which is the University of the District of Columbia. She will tell you more about herself, but she is a tenured associate professor there and also over one of the programs, which I'll let her give you her specifics. But she's here to talk to us about the faculty trajectory and path as it pertains to digital and online learning. And so before we get started into some of the questions, I just want you to, Professor Vassell, I want to welcome you and thank you for coming and joining us today. And also just want to know, tell me a little bit more about yourself and your background, some things like where you're from. And so just curious about that, and then we'll get into our questions. We're just gonna have a conversation, so welcome and thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Thomas. I am very, very happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. Delighted to be talking about a subject that I'm very passionate about. And so I think we're gonna have a really lovely conversation. I think you're right about that. So who am I and where am I from? I am from the United Kingdom, as you can probably tell from my accent. I was a long-time journalist working in radio, newspaper, television for many years, starting at the British Broadcasting Association, otherwise known as the BBC, and in television at the UK's Channel 4. And several years ago, or decades ago actually, I came to the US. And I came to work in the black media, which has always been a passion for me. So I came to work at the historic Washington Afro-American newspaper, where I was the city editor, and I really learned about life in America, particularly black life in America, which, as I said, I'd always been really passionate about. And as I began to work there, I also began to realize the value of education. And so I segued into teaching as an adjunct at the University of the District of Columbia and sort of moved into my journey as a professor from there. So starting as an adjunct and then moving on to full-time employment as an instructor.
Wow, so you worked in industry, you practiced as a journalist, and like as you mentioned before, across the span of journalism, television, radio, newspaper. You said you went into becoming an adjunct. What was the impetus for that initial application just to teach? Did you have a desire to work with young people, to teach students? Like what started that? What was the impetus for that initial adjunct appointment?
Well, I come from a family of teachers,
Okay.
So let's start there. I've always loved teaching, and my family have also always been passionate about teaching, whether it was in church or formally in the schools. In fact, my sister is a university professor, my brother had his own company as a teacher, so teaching is really in our blood. And as an editor, I did interact quite a bit with young people, and learning and teaching were often combined for me. So even as I was learning my new home, I was also teaching about subjects that were passionate to me. So it seemed very natural to share my knowledge of journalism in the classroom, in the official classroom, as opposed to, informally as an editor. So it was a direct sort of segue, which made a lot of sense to me at the time.
So, Professor Vassell, you mentioned that you were adjunct, a full-time position came available, you decided to apply. And so I am curious in the pathway leading from adjunct to obtaining this full-time position. And we know in the tenure process, you don't come in typically 10 years. You have to go in and go through the different phases of being an assistant professor and so on and so forth. And you were teaching, and I would imagine teaching in mostly probably face-to-face in particular times, not to give any dates or anything like that to date anything. But I'm just curious as to what peaked or what was the kind of start of your interest in digital tools. Did you use any of those digital tools? And then online learning specifically, I'm just curious to know how you got in that from your start to, from your start in teaching.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm now a teacher and I'm new to teaching, having segued from being a full-time editor. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about this new profession that I was in. So I was always exploring ways to teach better. So I was learning and teaching at the same time. I was reading a lot. I was asking my colleagues a lot about best practices. And back when I was in the UK, I'd known about distance learning through Open University, the Open University UK. In fact, one of my best friends had gotten an English degree from there, so I understood the concept of distance learning. So when the opportunities came up, as I moved through being an assistant professor and gaining tenure, etc., I knew that I wanted to do work that was really sort of pioneering and that would really help my students do the best possible work and have the best possible outcomes that they could. So when the opportunity came up for us to learn how to teach online and how to build courses online, I signed up immediately. I had no idea what I was getting involved in or what I was in for, but as I said, I had this passion for this new profession and I really wanted to learn and I wanted to do the best job I could for my students. So this for me was part of the journey for offering more options to my students, for serving the diversity of our students, and our students are generally older. They work, sometimes they can only come to school part-time. So I was looking really at how I could best serve my students, and distant learning and these digital tools really were the key for me, I believe, to give students what they needed.
So that's awesome. So your initial interest in digital online learning, distance education, this kind of different non-traditional modality was very learner-centric. You were very much engaged in thinking about the students' options and doing that, but also something that was very interesting. Even though you had this great long career in journalism, you were at the point of being an editor, working for a major publication, so very, very well-versed in your discipline, as with some faculty, for whatever reason, have an issue. Sometimes when we say a subject matter expert, you are definitely a subject matter expert, profound, prolific in your work, had the education and criteria. You still realized there was more to learn and that your interest in doing so was to better serve the students. So that's pretty correct, you would say?
Absolutely correct. I realized that as a teacher, I would have to first be a learner and learn as much as I could about what my students needed and the best practices. So I was very enthusiastic, still am, and approached everything with an amazing amount of vigor. And I learned so much, and I literally sapped up all the knowledge and any opportunity that I had to learn more about engaging my students in better ways. I grabbed it, literally grabbed it.
So while you were doing this for your students, my understanding is that this began to then transform and also benefit your own faculty trajectory, your own research, your own service and things of that nature. Talk about that shift or that transition. I love that the reason was for to benefit the students, but let's talk about now some of the things and benefits that it had for your career as a faculty member and how it's just basically just taking you in some different ways.
Yes, this has been a delightful surprise for me. Just how much this work in online and distance learning has benefited me personally. It was not something that you could really anticipate, but such a payoff. From the moment that I became a Matilda Minor Fellow with you, Dr. Morris, at that time at UDC, my knowledge base, my ability to create courses that were well organized, that were, again, that really benefited my students. That knowledge gave me confidence as an instructor. And so that further boosted my abilities to kind of understand this new world that I was in. And I feel that along the journey, and this has been, several years now, I think I'm 6 years in. No, actually more than 6 years. I started in 2014.
Right.
That it's just sort of
almost
become
10
part,
years.
almost 10
Yeah,
years,
wow.
yeah, actually, almost 10 years. See, time flies. But it's now become a part of the work I do both inside and outside the classroom. In 2022, last year, I was selected to be a Fulbright specialist, and I went to the Namibia University of Science and Technology. And one of the reasons that I was selected was to do work around distance learning. Now, Namibia is a huge country with a small population that are really spread out. So one of the things that my hosts wanted was to look at ways in which they could engage students across this vast country. And one of the things which absolutely delighted me was I taught a class in data journalism with part-time working students who are geographically spread around the country. So really this brought together the work I'd been doing at my institution with the work that was necessary at NUST. So it was very gratifying to see that all those early tools and all the early and continuing work that I've been doing had a perfect application when I went to do this Fulbright Specialist Award. So it was very gratifying to see that.
So talk a little bit, so you mentioned the Matilda Minor Faculty Fellowship. Matilda Minor, for those who may not know, is just a giant in the teaching field, synonymous with excellence in teaching, also synonymous and very impactful for particularly Black and Brown people for teaching. And so that's ergo the name of the fellowship. And so you applied to this fellowship, was accepted in the fellowship. The impetus seems like it was for you to learn more about it, interested in this online aspect of teaching and learning. But you got in, or I won't say but, and you got into the fellowship, went through it, and then talk about the application for the Fulbright Specialist. What is a Fulbright Specialist? How competitive is that? Why was your role, your work in the Matilda Minor and all the preparation you had done really impactful for you as a Fulbright Specialist to be able to get this opportunity, and how did that come about?
Yes, so the Fulbright Specialist Award is one that's given to experts in their field, and is a highly selective process, and you are partnered with an institution that needs your assistance, essentially. So the institution decides what it needs, and then it applies, and you are matched with that institution. So one of the things that the Namibia University of Science and Technology needed was somebody to assist with creating a journalism degree, or actually improving and reviewing its journalism degree so that it would reach more potential candidates, more students across this country, which, as I said, is vastly spread out. The population is vastly spread out. So distance learning was one of the factors that would be needed. What are the best practices? And through the Matilda Minor Fellowship, I'd become a course reviewer. And so now I was in this world of being able to look at courses and really give guidance to how they could be best put together. And so I felt very confident in that. And when I went to Namibia as a result of this, becoming an online course reviewer, which I was guided through the fellowship. So let me be clear about that. Our hands were held, all of us who went through that process, and we felt very confident as we moved through what is, quite a stiff sort of process. So I felt very confident as a result of that to go to NUST and to assist them with their work around that. And to this day, I literally just reviewed their new master's course.
Wow.
So the application just keeps on giving. That work just keeps on going and giving.
So from a fellowship, you became a certified peer reviewer under Quality Matters, which is a global leading organization around course design, quality assurance. You then, as a fellow, because it was work, you all had to review many courses, but something that you were doing locally at your home institution to impact you eventually allows you opportunity to be a Fulbright specialist for another nation to impact there, because the educational system there is more on the national scale,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And to impact that. So that's one, amazing, but the thing I think to highlight from that is that you went from a local training on online learning that then, I guess I'll ask it this way. Had you not gotten this specialized training in course design, course reviewing, course building for the online modality specifically, would you have been able to, one, probably be selected for that particular position, and then would you have been able to have this type of impact?
Yes, I think it would have been very difficult, because this was a key part of what the institution wanted, to be able to do this work. And I would not have had the confidence even to apply to do this work if I hadn't had that training as a fellow. I think it was key that I literally knew what I was doing.
Right.
But I had the expertise. And through the fellowship, I think it opened opportunity with the Fulbright, but I also became a certified peer reviewer, and I was reviewing at other institutions in the US. So I had a chance to practice this work over time, which allowed me to have the confidence and the skill sets when I applied for the Fulbright. So yeah, it really was key.
So so since the Fulbright, you've worked in Namibia, you've helped them, and you said just recently it's been perpetual. It's been the gift that keeps on giving, so to speak. And I always say this, and I will continue to say it until the day that says I'm different, but in the sector of higher education, the fastest growing sector within higher education is online learning. It's in high demand, and that's not just in the U.S., but it's globally. What have you continued to do since then? Has it led to anything else within your faculty trajectory?
Well, I'm excited to say that right now I'm in the middle of an amazing project. In March of this year, March 2023, myself and a colleague wrote and edited a book called Mapping Black Europe, Monuments, Markers, Memory. And this is the area of my scholarship. It focuses on 8 black communities in Europe, among them Paris, Berlin, a number of them.
Wow.
And after we did that work, that pioneering work, we applied for a grant. And this grant was through a European organization. And we awarded a grant for 50,000 euros.
Wow.
And a key portion, that grant really was about creating an online course. Again, we're back where we started. An online course for distance learners across Europe about Black Europe. So my expertise, which began with the fellowship,
Right.
was key in obtaining that grant, because had we not been able to build an online course, we would not have gotten the grant. So we're in the middle of that work right now. We've built one module. That module is now out for testing. And once we get the feedback on that, we'll see what we need to change. Again, within the scope of designing that module, we use the best practices that we learn back in the fellowship. I learned back in the fellowship. So yes, this is just a continual giving process, has never stopped, and I can see how that will follow, that will be part of my career moving forward.
Wow, that's interesting. So you started off just more as a purist teaching in person, and then now you have this subspecialty of skills and this lens through course design. So you understand instructional design, you understand it specifically for the online format, but it's now impacted your scholarship, and you've been able to get external grant funds, which has allowed you to travel throughout Europe to develop a course. And the course is, again, tell me the name of the course.
It's called Black Europe, and it is the first of its kind that encompasses Black Europe, and it's the first of its kind that is online as well. It's in English, and it focuses on 8 cities in Europe, the 8 cities focused on in our book that I mentioned. And so we are really looking to find out how people learn who are have English as a second language. Wow. Which brings in another aspect of, what are best practices in those areas, because as you know, Europe has a multitude of languages, but English was the common one that we selected to use. So we're really looking at the literature, how people learn best English with English as a second language, how they learn best in the online world with that. So we're doing quite pioneering work. It's the first of its kind. And we can trace that journey back, as I keep saying.
That's amazing. All right, we use as our tagline for the Office of Digital Online Learning here, expanding opportunities, advancing opportunities, expanding our reach. And really, online learning really does help to advance opportunities and to really expand reach. Like, this is a global course you're creating about different communities. Who will be the learners? Who is this course geared towards? Is it going to be housed in an institution? Like, what's going to happen with the course once it's done through testing?
So we're in the middle of testing, and one of the things that we're looking at is where we have an extensive survey that we give to learners, but we're looking at people in the creative industries, people in museums, people in organizations that work in Europe, looking at educators, we're looking at students themselves, we're looking at community organizers. So it has a broad reach.
Wow.
And so it really is pioneering in that way. And our ability to reach these communities is obviously because this is going to be an online course. Wow. We would not reach them otherwise. And what is so important about this is that this work allows communities in Europe to meet each other for the first time, and in this case in the virtual world. So cannot underestimate how important this work is for us in Europe, and so thankful that I have the skill sets as a result of those early experiences to do something like this, to offer this, to expand knowledge across a whole continent really, and beyond.
So would it be too far to say that basically you embracing digital and online learning has absolutely just transformed your faculty trajectory, your career as a professor?
Yes, embracing digital online learning has been pivotal to my direction. I would not be doing what I'm doing now, with this work, with this grant. I probably would not have gone to Namibia. So yes, I mean, wow. These amazing experiences that I've had.
Funding.
50,000
euros is nothing to wink at.
It's nothing to sneeze at, exactly. So this began, and you never know when you take that first step. That's what's important. I think when you approached me about this and said this was a great idea, and I was really not really understanding what it meant, really. But now, years and years later, I really see the impact, and I would just so encourage others to just try. I think that, there's a learning curve, but, we're educators, so
Absolutely.
That's not new to us, is it?
Right.
So you have no idea where it's going to lead. And I think just having this in your tool belt will just give you so many more options and take you down so many roads that you have no idea yet. So I'm very, very excited. And I'm excited to continue this journey myself. So I would definitely encourage everyone who can, try it. Just give it a try.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I was going to be actually, my wrap-up question was going to say, for those who might still be on the fence or a little, have some trepidation around doing this, what would the advice be? We said just give it a try.
Give it a try. Yeah. I mean, give it a try. It will pay off in ways that you cannot even expect. And who doesn't want an extra, tool in their tool belt?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think whatever you invest in it, you'll definitely get it out 10 times.
And it's mutually beneficial. It's not just, it benefits the students, which is great, but it also can be beneficial to your scholarship, to your service. It helps all the prongs of the professoriate. So that's great. So with that, we'll wrap up our conversation. I want to thank you so much, Professor Vassell, for coming and being with us and sharing your great, amazing journey of how digital online learning has basically almost catapulted you into a whole different aspect of teaching, scholarship, and service. After being already a tenured faculty member. I think that's just amazing. So thank you. Any last words you want to give?
Well, thank you personally for the early impetus to try. And I must say that as a mentor in this area, you've been just invaluable in your encouragement and in your guidance. So thank you. And I know that you're doing great work here. The faculty can really benefit from.
Well, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in to this conversation. It's been great to have you all. And just continue to look out for us on our website and things that we have going on our social media here at Howard University and the Office of Digital Online Learning. Thank you so much again.